welcome to our new speed build episode for Bear Gardens. Normally I don't really speak in these, but I wanted just to give it a try, and I really fell in love with this particular project, which is working on a staff centre for all the staff at the Bear Gardens. It's one of the things that I've really taken an interest in because there's so much you can do with the staff buildings. Like, you can have them separately, and I tend to have a certain area for them, like an outdoor section. However, I wanted to give it a try of making an indoor space and make it look attractive enough so not only does it just look like a good part of the zoo, but also for the members of staff that actually it's a really nice space to be relaxing in and to be working from. So at the moment I've just been trying to play around with lots of different materials, really trying to broaden my horizons as to the different combinations of materials, and you'll see me throughout this particular speed build changing my mind every so often, especially with the roof. That changes. Even with these walls, I'll be changing a few things there, where like this window sort of sticking out, because to be perfectly honest, I am slightly a perfectionist, so the idea of little bits of features sticking out of walls, I find it quite uncomfortable. But my intention of this was to make it into a nice space, an attractive space, but also to try and incorporate a few environmental interests in there. So I know that I've sort of done a bit of research into different architects to see what's being done and get some ideas. That's how I usually get some of my inspiration. And with this one, I really wanted to make sure that there was loads of plants that were on show, which we'll be showing later on. But also I really wanted to make sure that it was really identifiable which building was what, especially as this goes on. I need to know what buildings they're going into. They need to know what buildings are what, if they were not computerized and this was a real life situation. But yeah, I really wanted to make it a really accessible space and make it interesting. But what I did want to do was not put everything into that one space, because what I wanted was for the quarantine area to be part of this structure, but also being in a different section of it, so the animals that were unwell weren't going into the same areas as other animals who may be waiting to be put into the zoo. Now, one of the things I found so difficult about this is doors. I've not really used doors before, to be perfectly honest, and it's really difficult because I don't know about you, but for me, I never can find a door that actually fits in the certain frames that allow for an entrance. So I had to try and be really creative and think about a way that I could have some sort of hinge showing so that it gives off that illusion and doesn't have just a small gap in it. And what I ended up deciding on was actually I'll just use another door and hide it within the wall, similar to what I did with the windows. Part of it is hidden inside the walls, and I think it works well. Again, the windows is a new thing for me to try out, and I've not really done that before because I just couldn't figure out how to make it work effectively for the sizing, forgetting that I could just hide some of the elements of the windows within the walls itself. Now here's an example of me about to completely change my mind, because I love glass roofs. I think it works well, and especially for what I had in mind, I needed some sort of glass there so sunlight can come through. But then I realised quite quickly that the other material I was using on the quarantine section was quite nice, and so I decided to use that instead, but also wanted to maintain the glass, so I ended up doing a combination of them. I don't know if that's structurally possible, but I really liked it. I thought it's a nice idea, and to be perfectly honest, it's not anything new for me. I do quite like to have like glass tops with the main area around it being some other roofing material. Now I wanted to make sure that every area of this staff centre had some greenery, that it looked full of life, because sometimes when you go to work you just need something just to keep you going, because you don't want to go to a space where you're not feeling happy and the area doesn't suit you. That's why, like, personally, I really don't like any working from an office with white walls because it just looks too clinical and it doesn't make me happy. But also, like during lockdown, I learned how great plants are to have around. So I always have a plant in my office because it's just so nice to have that just a little bit of life and vibrancy in a room. And so I wanted to do that for the staff centre, that as they enter in, it's not simply a place to be working from, but also it's a space for life, a space for well-being, very much representing what this zoo that I'm trying to build is all about. One of the things that I noticed in a few buildings that I've seen online is that there's a lot of more work being done to try and make them more eco-friendly by having like garden roofs, so that actually a lot of the heat is taken in by the plants. They're cooling like cities down. It's a really smart idea. I think it should be a part of every building almost that is now built. So I wanted to incorporate that in this. Now I could have just used like normal squares of soil, but actually I decided that I wanted to try and have some sort of framing so it looks as if it was in a fixed space. It wasn't just a bunch of soil just on top of the woods. And I then decided that actually I wanted to have a certain colour scheme. So as we go through this, through the sort of the nature designing, I end up going for more of sort of a purple and pink colours, which is not my normal choice of colours, but I really liked it. And as this goes on, like, I'm just so proud of what I did. I think it's nice to be proud of the time you spend working on things. And to be honest, I think this is probably my favourite builds I have done on these in this series so far. Now this is the one time that I did decide to use a square soil, just because I wanted to make this section be not tarmac. It was actually part of the ground itself. It wasn't having any concrete put over it. But I really like this bit because I thought that it needed to be something really to grab your attention. If it's in the centre of the centre, it needs to be very eye-catching. And so I really tried to start experimenting with all the different types of flowers that you can get, because normally I don't normally get these ones where they're sort of rounded. They've got a certain structure to them, which made it an extra bit of challenge, because there's sometimes where I realised it wasn't going to go around the whole fountain. So I then had to make some compromises, which I think worked really well. And so I started to build up with the pinks, and then eventually go into the purples and so on. And I think, like, personally, if I was to go into the building, I would be very much enjoying work. Not that work with animals would be terrible, but actually the idea of, if you enjoy your work in working with animals, like, make sure you have a good space to work from, have a good space that's full of life, full of colour, rather than it being a very dull place. The thing is that now I've realised I've got the problem of trying to, like, keep this sort of quality up, because I just think it looks really, really good. And I think whether that's more due to me just being a bit more creative, trying to try new things out, or it's just been the fact that I've been trying to spend more time doing builds such as these and really giving time to it, it's made it very clear that I'll need to try and upgrade some of the other buildings that I've already worked on, and some of the enclosures as well. It got to this point that I realised that I couldn't keep up with the pink and purple, so I needed something different, but I wanted something that would still work with it, but in a bit of a unique way. And I was a little bit concerned about this, because I thought I don't want to cover up the other, like the fountain and the inside area. But I realised actually by having these sort of larger plants, it meant that there's a different angle to look from. And of course I needed to put some benches, because if you want to have this as a place of appreciation, you've got to have some benches to sit in. But this is the staff centre. I hope you like it. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as to what you think of it, if you've got any other suggestions, because I really like it, but I know that there's probably more that I can improve on it, and I would really love to hear those thoughts from you. This has been Pandafield Plays, and I hope that you've enjoyed this speed build, and I hope to see you again at Bear Garden soon.